get started because we have until Isha prayer. I just want to thank everyone for coming today. And thanks for putting up with all the pubs. We're still getting used to programming and realizing how many times we need to send something out for people to actually show up. So this is awesome. This is wonderful. So thanks for showing up. My name is Bushra Hamid, and this is Camilo. We both went to Harvard and graduated in 2020. And when I was exploring the admissions process, I had absolutely no idea how anything worked. And I wish I had people to ask questions and to look up to. And so this is really why I started doing these events. And we did one 2 years ago, and we wanted to do it again for the new batch of high schoolers and anyone else looking to just understand the process for their future and their kids and whatnot. So really excited to be here and to answer any questions that you guys have. And really, really honored that Camilo has joined me here. We were classmates, so I've known him for quite some time, and he flew in all the way, no, I'm just joking. He currently resides in Houston, surprisingly, which is really odd because most Harvard students end up in New York. So there's only a solid few of us here in Houston. I'm really honored that you joined us today to help us with this event. Did you want to say anything?
Oh, hello. Thank you guys very much for letting me be here and speak with y'all. It's a pleasure. As Busher said, we're the few and proud here in Houston. So, we thought the way the event should work is we'll give you a general overview of what the timeline is like for college admissions. We'll talk a bit about what things we emphasize in the application, what scholarships are out there. And then at the end, I would really like this to be an event where you guys can just ask questions and really just whatever's on your mind. I find that oftentimes the questions that students bring to us are the most important part. So please ask questions. They can be about anything, and then hopefully we can, share something useful.
Exactly. So I'll actually ask you to put your phone here so I can look at the time. So stay on task, or stay on time. So okay, it's 8 o'clock. So we'll try to spend around 30 minutes or less on this PowerPoint, and then go and proceed with questions and share a bit about our story throughout. So the first thing that I think is vital is having you guys understand the timeline. Actually, I want to take a quick poll. Who's still in high school? Raise your hand. Okay, fantastic. And who's younger than high school? Okay, you guys, good thing that you're starting early. So this will kind of be geared towards people in high school and what you can do now that you're in high school. However, if you're younger, then there's a lot more things that you can do to make yourself stand out. So just keep that in mind, that there's additional things if you're younger you should do that we won't necessarily cover here, but definitely ask me afterwards. You definitely want to start as early as possible. But this will be, okay, you're in high school now, what should I do? So 10th grade spring, you should definitely start updating your resume and look at what you have and what you don't have. You want to start creating a story for yourself. You want to look as if you're a diverse student, but you also want to focus on, some kind of niche. So you studied physics. How was your resume? What were your extracurriculars? You did Common App, right?
Oh, yes, I did study physics. I should have mentioned that in my intro. Yes, my degree from Harvard was physics. I'm currently finishing, I guess I'm in the beginning stages of a PhD in physics at the University of Toronto. And in high school, I wasn't specialized in physics. In fact, most of what I did was social studies and social work. And when I was in high school, I was really interested in early childhood education. So I did a lot of work volunteering with my local church, helping students learn how to read. I also did a lot of research into government. So I was a page at the Minnesota State Senate. I did most of my high school in Minnesota. What about you, Bushra? What did you do in high school?
Yeah, sure. So I studied psych and government, and my on the Common App, the application that you use to submit to Ivy Leagues and most colleges today, you can list up to 10 activities. And mine, some people say try to put as random things as possible so you can show that you're well-rounded, but I didn't do that. I was very very honest, and I had a lot of government-related things that I was on there. So I was an intern for several congressmen, and I had put that on there, and then I worked with refugees and whatnot. So it's very also similar to social-focused, which landed us at Harvard, which is a social humanities school, so it made sense, really. So that's what my resume was geared towards.
No wonder we're such good friends. Could we please get the next slide?
Oh, you don't want to cover that?
There we go. Oh yes, can you all see that? Good. This is what we were talking about.
Oh, it wasn't on there.
But yeah, so I think one of the things you can take away from what Bush and I are trying to get at is that when you're going into high school and you're younger, maybe the way to think about it isn't, hey, I want to get to the best college, but maybe you should think about it like, what is the good I can do in my community? And how can I help people in the best way I can? And in your unique way. Some people are talented with, math and research. So my friend Richie, when he was in high school, he applied to work at NASA. And he was from a small town in Virginia called Roanoke. And then he did research, sort of remote, but for the time, at NASA, trying to help figure out how scientific models worked. And he didn't do this because he was like uniquely capable for physics, but because he was curious and he thought, oh, it'd be nice to help astronauts. I was curious about like government and literacy was something that really mattered to me because I saw a lot of kids in my neighborhood who were failing out of school, and I said, well, what can I do there? So think to yourself, like, what are the gifts I can offer, and then delve towards those.
Yeah, exactly. And my freshman year, I lived next to someone who had worked intern at Twitter. Just if you have skills, if you're have something that you're really good at, like computer science, definitely try to leverage that. And I mean, the amazing thing about having a community like this is everyone's willing to help, and everyone here is in very diverse jobs. So definitely ask for internships or ask for help because a lot of people are willing to offer it. And now we'll get to 11th grade fall. So this is where really I wish when I was in high school, I was just doing my best because I wanted to. I had no idea I was going to apply to Harvard. I had no idea that was even a possibility for someone going to Manville High School. So it was really just, I wish someone told me to take the PSAT seriously because I didn't, and I didn't realize that there were so many scholarships out there, and I knew I could have done a lot better than than I did. What do you get? What is the scholarship called?
Oh, yes.
Yes, national merit. That looks so good on your application. And there's a lot of scholarship deadlines, so we're going to go into that on a future slide. But definitely start paying attention to that very, very early. And again, I wish I knew that because it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money in college. Another thing is you're going to have to register for your ACT and SAT. I know now it's not required for most of you guys, for most colleges. Still take it because you definitely want to do everything that you can to stand out. So if you don't do good, don't submit your scores if they don't if you don't have to, but definitely take it if you think you'll do good because you want to do anything you can to stand out. And this is also a time you want to start developing really good relationships with your teachers for recommendation letters. We'll go into that in more depth and develop rapport with your counselor because they are going to write a little section on your application as well. Do you want to focus on 11th spring?
I would love to focus on 11th spring. And yeah, so you can imagine in your high school journey, so you went into high school freshman year, you thought, okay, what can I do to help make this a better place? Maybe you started your own project, you're doing what you can do, you've done really good in your classes, you're getting good test scores, and you're practicing really hard, you have to be putting a lot of work. And now it's crunch time, because now it's when, 11th spring is when you have to get sort of the best grades, because, they'll forgive you if as a freshman you didn't do great, but if as a junior you're not doing well, it's not ideal.
Yeah, improvement is fine, but not decline. So
Exactly.
If you're not doing well, but you start doing well, that's completely fine, people get it. But if you start doing bad, it's not.
Yes, exactly. So 11th spring, what you're thinking is, I want to start producing really good results. Like academically, I want to be hitting my stride. I want to be helping my community as most as I can. I want to be showing excellence in my sports, in my music, and all the extracurriculars you're doing, you're trying to shine. So 11th spring is what some people would call the more stressful year. Because then after that, going into senior year, you just get to brag about all the cool things you've done.
Awesome. And then finally, senior year. Your fall is really where everything takes place and it sucks. But afterwards, you'll be done and you'll have an amazing spring. Just keep in mind, even though if you make it to college by then, you still have to submit your spring transcript to colleges that you got in. So if you slack off a bit, that's fine. But if you fail a grade your spring year, they're still going to see that even if you got accepted your fall. So just keep in mind you will submit your final year transcripts. And you cannot be lazy with any of this because you can't reverse deadlines. I know someone who's emailed the college and asked to reverse a deadline. You can't do that. We'll go on to the next slide, please. Cool. So these are the list of Ivy Leagues and the middle SAT scores of the new SAT. So some of you older folks out here, you probably took the SAT like us, that was out of a 2400 scale. Now it's out of a 1600. And this is the Ivy League list of the middle average scores. So you definitely want to get between here or higher. You don't want to be under the 25% because it's very, very hard to get in afterwards. So try to definitely aim for the 75% mark, which is this last number. Okay? If you want to try to get to these Ivy Leagues, here are the acceptance rates. One thing to know about Ivy Leagues is they're very competitive with each other, so they want to have the lowest acceptance rate. So they're always battling, and they'll always like change it up. And they also have to publish all their scores, so they really, really, really care about scores. And another thing I'll let you guys know, and I actually have a question for you, but your applications are a mathematical formula. So your admissions officers will literally, before they even look at your application, they'll have a formula up there. They'll add it might change a bit now because SAT is not required, but they usually add your SAT score plus your GPA, plus how good your rec letter was, plus how good your interview was, and they calculate it. And you have to hit a threshold for them to even read your application. So keep that in mind, that the mathematical formula actually exists. And one thing that's really cool with Harvard is they let you go and read your admissions, like they're required to by law let you read your admissions file. So I went and read mine and saw, everything that they wrote about me and my formula and everything. Did you go do that?
I did not know.
Well, you need to do that because you only have 5 years after you graduate.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so you're gonna book a flight and go read it. It's actually the coolest thing. You'll see what they all wrote about you, and it's a bit terrifying. And now they let you take photos of it. At my time, they didn't, so I literally took a pen and paper and I wrote every single thing. It took me like 2 hours. But I need to pull that up someday. And then here's a list of Texas schools. Oh yeah, next slide. Here's a list of Texas schools. I don't have the scores for them. I didn't put that up there. But here are the most common. There's obviously a lot more Texas schools, but here are the most common ones if you're looking to apply with the acceptance percentages. All right, next slide. All right, we'll talk a bit about scholarships.
They exist, and you guys should apply as many of them as possible. So scholarships and funding are a really big and important discussion to have because you can imagine that college is somewhat of a luxury good. Like, it's very expensive, and it's getting more expensive. But fortunately, people are willing to pay for your education. And there are, at least when I was applying, something like 3,000 or so scholarships that you can apply to at minimum across the US. And for different groups, whether it be like Islamic groups or service-oriented groups, or maybe you belong to a particular club at school, there'll be specialized scholarships. And so if you play your cards right and you apply to as many scholarships as you can, and you'll get quite good at this, trust me, you can actually make a profit off of college. Like one of my dear friends, his name is Matthew Capucci. He's now the weatherman for, I think it's the Washington, D.C. area weatherman.
He's actually, Camilo's featured in his new book being released.
Yes, he did write a memoir. I do get a shout out there, but he was always a very interesting person, and I care for him deeply. But one of the things that he taught me about was how he applied to, I think, something like 67 scholarships or so, such that he actually got more money than his college was worth. And so at the end of every semester, they would just hand him a check of money. And then the scholarships not only cover your education, but if you have projects, so remember in high school you were developing your passions, you were doing things to help people. Now they sometimes actually give you a budget. So for Matthew, he's a meteorologist, and since he was 8 years old, he knew he wanted to be a weatherman. So for something like 10 years, he's gone storm chasing throughout like the Midwest. And when he was in college, he was able to create his own courses so that he could take the funding from his scholarship to go storm chase, right? I've had people tell me about how their scholarships will buy them laptops. And so I would definitely encourage you to apply to as many scholarships. And part of the application process is you can talk to the people who run the scholarships and say, hey, I'm young now, but I would love to see in the future how I could get this scholarship. What are you looking for? And every scholarship has like a set of values and a set of things that they're looking for, and they'll quite honestly tell you what they look for in applicants. So then you can think, oh, well, they want to see this, that, and other thing. Let me do this, that, and the other thing. Then you apply. They know you because you've reached out to them, and you'll make it rain.
And I listed the most, prominent and very prestigious scholarships right here. So these look really good. And one thing about scholarships is it's a whole application process, so they make college admission officers' jobs easier, because if a scholarship, a prestigious scholarship, already accepted them, then it's, it shows that you probably are some kind of talent to look out for, and you're more likely to make it into a college. So it helps your application, even if you don't end up using the scholarship money due to some kind of limitation that they have on their rules. It still really, really, really looks good on your application, and I mean, it's definitely something you should look out for. A lot of jobs that your parents might have offer scholarships. Even if they're small, they add up. Also, public schools, Manville High School had scholarships I remember that you can apply for. So again, $1,000 here, $1,000 there, definitely adds up, because college is very expensive. And like you said, they pay for a lot of things. So like there was, I think if you're on like a full ride at Harvard due to financial aid, they give you, or at least they did for some people, $2,000 to take to Target and buy coats for the winter. So it's like they buy you stuff, and it's really cool. And again, another thing is don't be afraid of money. So even if you didn't apply for any scholarships, if you make it to a private school, the financial aid is so extensive. And if they want you, they'll give you the money. Even if they don't give you the initial package that you want, you can always talk to them directly, have meetings with your financial aid officer, they'll assign you one, and you can converse and negotiate. So you can definitely, don't apply regardless. Don't be scared of that $70,000 sticker that you see, because it's not true. There are so many different things that you can do. And there's actually, most colleges have a net price calculator on their website that you can look at and see how much your family would be paying based on the financial aid that's given.
And then along that line, also for parents, there are government incentives to save up for your kids' education. So I know in the same way that there's a 401k, I forget the number, but there is a tax-deferred savings account for college savings. And so you can imagine that if you want to mitigate your tax burden and also invest in your kids' education, you could create that account, and then it's a very nice thing that the US government offers. And then additionally, just to reiterate Bushra's point, one of the wonderful things about higher education in the US is that in general, they will reward talent. So regardless of one's ability to pay. So if you're an expert soccer player, you will find a school that'll give you the money to play soccer for them. Or if you're very talented at chess, they will help you to get the education you want to get at a reasonable price range. So it is definitely achievable, but it does take a fair amount of planning and discipline.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we're Muslim. You can count that as a minority, and there's a lot of scholarships for that. So definitely use that to your advantage. And then one more thing is FAFSA is the application that you have to do with the government, so they can verify your parents' assets and whatnot. And that deadline, at least in our time, is January. So make sure you don't miss that. Even after you've submitted applications, you have to submit the FAFSA deadline in order to be eligible for financial aid at your school. So definitely consider that. All right. Yes, next slide. Great. So just the next things that we're going forward to talk about is, again, assuming that we're trying to reach for the highest college, because we're trying to make trying to uplift the Muslim community. We want to have everyone reach their highest potentials. So we're assuming that you guys have high grades, high GPA, high rank. If not, we'll also talk about that, what to do if you don't. But definitely these are the number 3 things that you should focus on before we even talk about all the other little aspects of your application. So definitely try to aim for highest grades. Again, improvement is okay, decline is not. So if you didn't do well your first year, it doesn't matter at all. Just show that you've improved and that you care. And again, application, honestly, it's getting a lot easier. For us, it was really focused on test scores. Right now, it's not even required. I mean, you can easily make up for it in other aspects of your life. And remember who you're competing with. You're at least 30,000 people from across the globe are applying for this. A lot of people are worldly. The people I've met are insane, and you definitely have to want to stand out for it. So keep that in mind. But don't be stressed. You have dua and prayer on your side, so use that. All right, next slide. Cool. We'll go take a quick run of these important considerations. So when you're first applying, make a list of early on of schools that you're interested in. Also know that each application requires, actually it's different. So now You guys are also lucky. For us, it was just a Common App and Apply Texas. Apply Texas is what you use for Texas schools. Common App is what you use for almost every other school. Besides California, they also have their own application process. Now, in 2016, something came out called the Coalition App that is similar to the Common App, but you only have to write one essay for all schools. Common App, you have to write like 3 different essays for each school. And it's also cheaper. I think it's like 1 fee instead of applying for every single school's fee. So I don't really know which one's better, which one's not, because you can only use one. I would talk to your counselor at high school to see which application process you should use, Common App versus Coalition App. But just keep in mind, there is something called Coalition App that recently came out. Are you familiar with it? Okay, yeah, I'm not too familiar with it, but definitely look into it. And it definitely will decrease the burden of your applications. Now, if you don't do that, and you do Common App, which we did, you do have to apply, you have to pay, I think, $100 or $20 fee per school that you apply for, because you have to send your SAT scores into them as well as the application fee. There are a lot of fee waivers, so that's definitely something that you should look into ahead of time. And try to apply early to school. So there's early application, which is the 3rd deadline, the 3rd bullet point up there. I only applied to 1 school, so I only paid 1 fee because I applied early. I had a list of 16 schools because I had no idea where I wanted to go, but thankfully I only applied to Harvard and I made it in by December and I didn't have to submit any other applications, and I saved so much money. I saved so much money for that. So there, definitely apply early. Your acceptance rate is a lot higher, as well as it just saves you so much time and effort and just emotional, mental like strain. It saves you find out in December. But you have to keep in mind there's something called early action and there's something called early decision. So if you apply early decision, which is what Rice has, I don't think they have an early action process, but I think it's only an early decision. You are blinded to go there. So if you apply, let's say, Rice early decision and you make it in, you have to go there. You can't apply other places. If you do and you make it into Rice, you have to pull out your application from there. If you go to a different school, even if you made it somewhere else early decision and that school finds out, and this has happened to a friend of mine, so don't do it. They will literally rescind your, he made it in, I think, let's say Rice early decision, and he decided to go somewhere else. That school ended up finding out when they got his transcript after he had started, so after he had completed a semester, and he got kicked out of both schools. So early decision is very binding, but it increases your chances by so much because that school's like, wow, this person has really done a lot of research and really wants to go here. So definitely look into that. Harvard is only early action, so even if you make it in early, you can still apply other places, which is definitely something you want to consider if you want to explore your scholarship options at other schools, or you like a different region or whatnot. But keep that in mind, apply early, get it over with, save money. Rec letters, do you want to talk a little bit about recommendation letters and what you did?
Oh, sure, yes. I will also point out that, applying early would have been nice. I applied normal decision to 20 schools and I got rejected by 17 of them. So it happens, it's funny because it's the same application, so an app that will get you into Harvard sometimes won't get you into Berkeley. So all this is to say that the acceptance rate does change early action, and I would recommend it. For letters of recommendation, the best thing I can get you or tell you is it's very good to have strong relationships with your teachers and your recommenders and starting early. I, in high school, was very friendly with my teachers just because I liked them. I thought they were really cool. And so I would talk with them about my life, and they knew me pretty well. So then when it came to asking for letters of recommendation, it was very easy for them to write things about me because they knew me. And so I would say is as you're living your life, developing your projects, involve a teacher, get them as part of the team that's supporting you in what you do. And if you don't, then it's harder for them to say good things about you. And then another specific thing I would say, especially to the kids already in the application pipeline, is it's very okay to ask a teacher, will you write me a strong letter of recommendation? And if they say no, that's okay, that's them doing you a favor. Because it's better to get a strong letter of rec than to get a mediocre letter of rec, even if it's from the principal. So you'd rather get a good letter of rec from a teacher that knows you well than an okay letter of rec from someone from a more prestigious position. And so you can ask them, will you give me a strong letter? You can sit down with them and talk through your letter, be like, look, I'm applying to this school. this is the thesis of my application. This is what I kind of would like you to try to emphasize. And they'll tell you like, yeah, I can write that about you, and then you can do it. So that being said, it can be a team effort, and it's best to like be intentional about this. So don't put it off till the end, because they'll need time.
And again, rec letters are part of that calculation that I told you. They'll rate how high or how good it is. And another thing about, that's perfect, ask them if you'll write a good one. So I had a teacher, and I guess several of you guys in this audience have the same teacher, and I've heard this story several times. But she loved me, and she wrote me a rec letter, but you're supposed to submit it anonymously to the website. Teachers are supposed to submit it anonymously. She was a bit old, so she gave it to me, which she's not supposed to do. And so I read it, and she's an amazing teacher, and she loved me so much. She just didn't know how to write. So her rec letter wasn't great. So I was like, thank God she gave it to me, because I'm not going to use this. She still thinks that I submitted that, so she tells people to this day that she helped me get into Harvard. So I'm not going to tell her, I'm not going to break it to her that I did not submit her letter. But definitely, ask teachers who know how to write. That's why I added that, know how to write. And you can add up to 3 rec letters. So I did 2 teachers, and then I did one from an extracurricular, like a director that I was involved with. So definitely, if you have done extensive work in some kind of community outreach, ask the director or whoever is in charge of you to write you a rec letter. If you work, even if you have, a job at a restaurant, have your boss write you a rec letter. That definitely shows a lot in you. All right, next slide. Yeah, we can run through this quickly. Okay, so just quickly about the Common App, it consists of, you can write 10, you can list 10 things, 10 extracurriculars. Make sure you're very specific, but don't lie. So don't write that you're the legislation ambassador for Congressman Pete Olson. Write, expand, say you provided feedback on immigration legislation and education reform for Congress. Represented the views of my community's underrepresented minorities. So just like a resume, use concrete verbs to say exactly what you did instead of just, bland information. In your essays, for the Coalition app, you're just writing one personal statement and you're submitting it to all schools. For the Common app, you write one personal essay that goes to all schools. And each school also has an additional essay. So Harvard had one additional long essay and then one short essay. But I think Stanford has like 5 additional essays. So definitely start very early. Try to start the summer before. And I just had slides of how the Common App looks. Seja, can you just skip the next 2 so we can, cool. So we can, you can skip this one too actually. Just so we can save some time on Q&A. We can come back to these if needed. Here's a personal statement example of actually one of our classmates. So we shared essays like after we got in. And he ended up going like viral on Business Insider and a bunch of other places for this essay, which I didn't know, which was really cool. And this is just one of this is his initial paragraph. But when I did this event 2 years ago, I showed like essays, and I thought that was very helpful, so you guys can see how descriptive and how you're supposed to write these. This is just, again, his initial paragraph, not everything else. And I bolded the parts that you wanna read. Should we read it or just, okay, you guys can just look at it really quickly. And again, this essay, went viral. You're not, one thing that you really have to keep in mind is you don't tell, you have to show. So show, not tell.
I think the best advice I can give you all on essays is like, read good writing. Like read the New Yorker or the Atlantic, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a news-oriented anything. It can be any type of publication. Just make sure you read the best writing you can ever imagine, and then make your essay sound like that. Like a lot of people write their essays like they would a school paper, and I mean, no hate towards school papers, but they're not exactly literature. Whereas if you read a lot of the more successful essays, they read like op-eds for like the New Yorker. They read very much like with a pungent, intentional flow, and they tend to incorporate like witty twists of phrases. So I would highly encourage everyone to just like read really good writing, and then you'll write better.
Your essays matter so, so much.
Yes.
And they're fun to write, especially if you're a creative writer. I mean, I had a blast writing them. After 15 drafts of racing and rewriting. I only had to do it one time, so I was lucky.
Sure.
But again, this person, I think it was Brandon, he was trying to highlight his math and physics skills, but not saying, hey, I'm an amazing math and physicist who knows how to balance the two and show the intersection with music. He showed us instead of saying that, right? And it reads beautifully. Yes. There's 2 slides. Okay, so next slide. So what matters the most, your transcript and your grades. And then your essays, can't stress them enough, redo them. I wrote 15 drafts for one essay. Your letters of recommendations. Oh, and if you're an artist, include an art supplement so you are able to submit a YouTube video link. Or if you do photography, if it's amazing photography, if you did it for your AP photography class, submit those photos because you want to show that you have a creative element. Schools value creativity so much. And I remember like realizing, oh, I wish I had an art supplement to submit because just, you know, if you're a musician, record yourself playing and submit that because anything to help stand out definitely matters. And then the last slide.
Yeah, like the last slide we'll talk about before we'll take your questions, and then we'll basically the floor open to questions is what if my grades didn't do this, or what if, you know, my strengths aren't all there? And it's a tricky question because, you know, there is a threshold, and for the like most elite schools there does come a point where like if you aren't good at sufficient things, you're not in consideration. But what I think the best way to handle this like what if question is just be better than you were before, right? Like at the end of the day, the point of higher education amongst other things isn't to get a job, or it isn't to like, you know, be prestigious. The point of education is to ennoble yourself to help people. Like that's why above Harvard's gate there's a giant thing that says enter here to grow in wisdom and knowledge, leave here to better help your country and your kind, right? And so the process should focus on you becoming the best version of you can. And if you make a mistake and you stumble, that's okay, that's part of the process, but try to improve upon it. And then, you know, concretely, if you're applying and you're gonna submit your application and you know you have a shortcoming, try to explain what happened. You can get like a counselor or someone to write in and be like, hey, during this time, such and so was going through an illness, and try to offer mitigating circumstances. But more importantly than that, like, don't let it be a reflection on like your deepest self. This is what you do, this isn't who you are in some sense. And you will get better. Like one of my professors, he was a very interesting fella. He dropped out of college when he was like 20, and then he became sort of a vagabond for like 10 years. But then when he was in his 30s, he decided he really liked philosophy, so he dedicated himself to studying and to working on it, and he eventually ended up becoming a professor to Harvard. So the point was that even though, you know, he got a rocky start, by remembering what mattered, he was able to like get ahead and to improve. So the what if is, yeah, that's what I'll say, is like, it's okay if you make mistakes, try to overcome them, and you will get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we gave you everything, you know, as is. We don't want to sugarcoat things because, you know, we live in a world of reality. However, don't stress some of the things that we did. We're just trying to make everything as give you the best shot, but definitely still apply even if you don't think you have the shot and have the chance, because there's always, you know, exceptions to the rules. And again, things change every single year, the way applications are being done. And again, you can ask your counselor to write something, as well as there are private counselors out there. They're really expensive, but they can help develop your application if you need help. And just like you had said about your friend or your professor, my Harvard interviewer actually, he studied math at Harvard and was like a mathematician in Houston for like 20 years, and then realized that he was not happy like this entire time. So he went at 40 years old and went to med school, you know, randomly. So you know, there's definitely, it's never the end of the world. There's always options. So we'll end there. We did skip a few slides. We'll go back to them if we have time, but we do want to open the floor to questions because we have around 20 minutes and there might be some questions out there. So if you have a question, feel free to raise. Yes, Jed?
Are you allowed more than one scholar?
Yes.
So the question was, are you allowed to apply?
Yes.
Yes, are you allowed to apply to more than one scholarships? Absolutely, apply to every single one that you have the capacity for. Definitely.
And what would be an early application?
An early application, so it's a process the school will give. So if you're eyeing a certain school, so actually I was eyeing Rice. I wanted to apply to Rice early decision, and I set up my interview and I went for my interview, and I hated the interviewer, and I was like, I'm never going here. And so literally like a week before the applications, I changed and decided to apply to Harvard. Thank God. But it's early decision is it's just like an application that accelerates your process, and it's a certain way that you have to apply for it. Yes.
Go.
So you're talking about leveraging your position as a Muslim, to be like a minority in your application. So how do you like kind of show that?
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. He said, how can you leverage your, if you're Muslim and minority? So someone asked me 2 days ago. They called me, and they said, hey, my daughter is in a Quran program every single day after school, and it takes up all her time. She has no time for extracurriculars, and she's freaking out. I said, don't freak out. Use that to your advantage. Colleges want to see and want to have a diverse application pool. And if you're religious, so be it, They definitely want to balance out the very liberal mindset that's very present in colleges today. And you had stated that you put stuff about Christianity on your application.
Yeah, so I went to like a very small Christian school, and I'll say like being religious could be the greatest asset you have. Not just for getting into college, like in general, you're here for like 80 years and then you die. What you do with that time should be guided by like the highest moral you have, and that moral is God. And if God wills you to go to Harvard, then it will be so, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But if you follow that light and you live your life with that guidance, you're gonna do well, whatever happens, you know what I'm saying? So that when you're applying to your application, like think to yourself and pray about it. Be like, meditatively, what is the good that I can do with this, and offer that up. And then the other thing I would say is that you should consider that, okay, in Texas being like religious isn't that rare, but in Ivy League schools and like in coastal universities, they're like slightly crazy. Like they're very militantly atheists, and you're not gonna find many religious people. And so being honest about the fact that you are religious and how that's impacted your life and how you're like living to be in that way is going to make you different, and that will just make you stand out, because again, like it's not that common. I think one of the things that makes Bushra such a close friend of mine is she is very much a religious person, and it's hard to find those people at Harvard. Any other questions?
Camila is coming to our next halaqa. Yeah, and again, another way to leverage it is just write them as activities if you need to. It's nothing to shy away from.
Where is the best place to look for scholarships
Google.
outside of the college itself's website?
Yeah, so the college itself, your counselor at high school, ask her to print you a list of the best ones that she thinks you qualify for. The ones I listed, they have websites directly. There's also so many different websites. There's so many apps as well that people try to use. So just Google best scholarships to apply for. And Google, there's so many Arab American scholarships as well, and Muslim American scholarships. So definitely look into them.
And then, I will make a slight plug here. One of the apps I work for, it's called Luke Labs, and what they do, like the whole premise is it like takes high school students and it puts you in contact with college students like you. So you can like say, find Bushra on the app and then have one-on-one conversations. And so one thing that I would recommend is like talk to college students at the schools you are going to that have similar backgrounds to you, and they'll advise you very well. So I remember talking to a student and he told me like, hey, Camila, there's like the Hispanic Heritage Fund, and I was like, what? Why is that a thing? And then he's like, yeah, they'll give you money. And they did, they gave me money, it was great. Any other questions? Yes.
So, we have spoken to a professional college counselor, right? And one of the recommendations was that don't apply for scholarships. And so the reason to say that is because that increases the amount of money that the family is eligible to pay for. So let's say that you get, I don't know, just $10,000, right? So those $10,000 become a burden because you have to pay more money for college. So can you encouraging scholarships? So how come the professional council discouraged that?
So that's a really good question, and thank you for asking. Do you want to take it or can I?
We can both.
Sure. I would say that there's two aspects to this. So one is the family's perspective, and the other is like the student's individual liability. I guess three, and the third is the schools. So if you are from a family that makes less than like $68,000 a year, and you make it into the highest tier university, like you go to Harvard, the Ivy Leagues, they will all make sure you get a full ride. They're what they call neat blind admissions.
I think it's under 250 for Harvard actually. If you make under 250K, you get a full ride.
Yeah, so
year
under
ride.
250K is like, you'll get all your needs met. So they'll make sure that if you need some aid, they'll give you aid. Under 68 is like 100%, there'll be no liability. Then there are like smaller tiered schools where they can't cover all the financial aid of their students. And so you can imagine like the school that comes to mind for me would be like Macalester University in St. Paul, Minnesota or something, where they're good schools, they're like very well known locally, but they can't offer everyone a full ride. For those schools, if you have scholarship money, then the financial aid offer will subtract that. And so for those students, it is true that if they ever don't get the scholarship renewed, the parents would be on the hook. And so the reason I say apply to as many scholarships as you can is because in the situation where Opa. Is everyone okay?
You saw it coming.
No, like if you apply to as many scholarships as you can, and you get as many as you can, then you will have a lower overall burden. But if you are going to a school where you need more money, you can still ask for more money, if that makes sense. But he is right, like they will discount that at schools that don't have complete admissions,
Yeah.
or like complete aid.
Yeah, so again, we're talking about, the highest caliber, it's not gonna make a difference because what your needs are will be met. And the scholarship will help you get into the school. But you can also submit scholarships after you get your financial aid package. So a lot of scholarship deadlines are your junior year, but there are some afterwards. If your financial aid package at the school that you are going to isn't amazing, isn't the best, then you can also apply to scholarships afterwards if you're worried. But they do subtract it from usually what you're given, but that doesn't mean that they're increasing what you have to provide, if that makes sense. If they're offering you $70,000, but your scholarship's $70,000, we'll just erase that and give you $60,000. So all you have to worry about is ensuring that you're gonna get that scholarship renewed, that you're still meeting the scholarship's requirement. But also look at the different colleges that you're applying for and read their scholarship rules, for sure. Any other questions? Yes.
Earlier you said that you did an internship with, I think the senators or something. How did you find that internship?
So it was being offered in Houston. I just looked at the different, I was really interested in politics at the time, and I just Googled and I saw when their application deadline was and I applied, just out of nowhere.
Also, like a lot of the stuff I did, it wasn't like there was an application to do. I just sort of asked people like, hey, I am interested.
He still does that.
Yes, like I remember like the way I got interested in politics was just like email the politician and then I called like, hey, I want to get involved. And they're like, okay, cool, come get involved. And right now there's like a bunch of politicians in Texas that are like Muslim. So for example, Dr. Suleiman Lalani, he is like running in House District 76 and like he's most likely gonna win. I think his chances are like at 60%. So he's a senator in the area, or I guess he'd be a House rep in the area who you could reach out to, or like the Houston City Councilwoman. I can't remember her name, but yeah, Letitia. She's also like Muslim, so you can just ask people and they'll get you opportunities. Like I run a small startup, and every other day or so I'll get emails from high school students asking me for internships, and like if I can make them an internship, I will happily give it to them. So just apply to things, ask, and then if people say no, sometimes you have to ask again. Like sometimes you catch them in a bad mood.
Yeah. Send 100 emails, you'll get 1 or 2 replies. That's all you need. You don't have time to do all 100.
Yeah.
But definitely look at applications first because there's a lot of processes for a lot of these.
Yes, there's a bunch of scholarships, and a bunch of internships. That's a really good question.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Does your socioeconomic status ruin your chances of being accepted by scholarships?
Does your what?
Yes, sometimes. So
Socioeconomic status?
Depends.
does your social economic status affect your ability to get scholarships? Depends on the scholarships. The very prestigious ones, usually not. but other ones it is based on financial aid, and that's completely fine if you don't get them or if you don't apply. Again, I didn't even realize like the world of scholarships. That's why I focus on it in talks now, because it could help a lot for people who might have a financial burden or just want to alleviate the costs on parents. But if you don't qualify for all of them, it's completely fine. Just look at what you have, and again, it's just an added thing for your application for your college life.
Yeah, like I would look at scholarships that if your parents make like a lot of money, then the scholarships that won't look at it are like merit-based scholarships. So if you win like the Putnam mathematics competition, they will just give you a full ride, regardless of how much money your family has. But if you're going to like Harvard and then applying for their financial aid, and they're like, oh, wait, your dad's Bill Gates, no, they'll send you away. So
they'll ask you for money.
Yeah, like they'll give us money. So, but merit-based scholarships typically won't look at your family's financial status. Any other questions?
As soon as you graduate, you'll start getting, please donate to us.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Like 2 days after I graduated, they asked me for money. I was like, guys, there's a pandemic. Yes, any other questions?
Can you repeat the math thing that the sentence
Oh, the one about how Harvard asked me for money after I graduated. Yes.
starts with a P.
Oh, the Putnam. Yeah, so
There's merit-based, basically.
Yeah.
There's merit-based versus financial.
Yeah, so there's
versus
merit-based scholarships, and a lot of them come from like winning awards. So for example, if you win the Putnam math competition, like most people who win it just get a full ride to whatever school they want. Or like, this is why like Indian Americans tend to emphasize spelling bees so much. It's because if you win the national spelling bee, you'll get something like $60,000 and like a full ride. or for athletic
Or
scholarships.
the National
too.
Merit Scholarship. It's a merit-based scholarship.
Yeah.
That does not take into consideration need-based. So there's a difference between merit-based and need-based scholarships.
Yeah, or like and so I think a lot of the company ones, like I believe it's Coca-Cola and Intel scholars, they are purely merit-based. Like you developed a really good project, they don't care how much money your family has, you're getting that as an award for like doing the project. And then also a lot of companies, like if your parents work for them, they'll give you some money if you apply.
But again, we emphasize scholarships because it's something that not a lot of people know about. But again, apply to colleges regardless of scholarship money and regardless of scholarships, because if you need the college will meet it anyways, and it doesn't matter. In the end, you're going to get a degree and you'll pay it off later on. So we just wanted to give you guys information that you might not have heard otherwise. But don't stress if you don't get what you need. Yes.
So how about work during your study?
Yes. Good.
Yeah, okay, great question, Mom. She said, how about working? So you can always work in college, and there's different ways you can work and directly get paid, or you can work to pay off your tuition automatically. Did you have any jobs?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, same. So I was a researcher for a couple years, and I was getting paid for that. I also, my first 2 weeks, I cleaned toilets. So it was like a program that Harvard offers that you can clean dorms before people move in and meet people and become friends with them and get paid a lot of money. So I was like, okay, why not? Let me clean toilets and meet new friends. So there's so many different jobs that you can do. And again, I worked on research at the Harvard Law School for a year or two, and was paid hourly. So I definitely had a job on campus.
Yeah, I was a librarian for a lot of it. Like, so I went to Harvard, but before that, when I was a student in Minnesota, I did dual enrollment at the University of Minnesota. And there, the move was to get a job that let you study while you got work, while you were working. So like parking attendant was the best job in the world. Because you get like $20 to read your textbooks, it was great. But yeah, so I would say you can definitely pay for your own education. Like, very, very few people in the US go to school and end up without debt, right? That's why like scholarships and financial aid are great, but realistically, like getting a loan or paying it off or getting a job is like what most Americans will do. And on top of that, I would just say like it is good to work because it's something that like keeps you tethered to reality. And when you're at university, sometimes things become so abstract that you forget like what life is like outside of the bubble. And so in general, just having a job is good because working is good.
Yeah. And then, sorry, 1 second. So even like Miriam here, no? Oh yeah, so she is currently a college student, but she works at Crumble. You guys should go visit her at the cookie store. and that's how it helps pay off their college. And there's another community member, Ala Amlish, who was the manager at Michael's here while full-time student, so definitely possible.
Yes, thank you for giving us that much information. It helps a lot. But my question is, can you both of you tell us what was your GPA, how many AP classes did you take, and what was your study score?
Yeah, sure. So I actually listed mine on here. I'm happy to share it. Or it's fine. It's gonna take a while. I took a lot of AP classes. Oh, that is another thing actually one of the slides that we skipped. Your college that you're applying to sees how many AP classes are offered at your high school, and they will compare how many you took compared to how many are offered. So if your school offers 16 and you only took 2, that doesn't look too great on you. But if you took 10 of them and your school offers 16, that looks much better. So I just took as many as I could, and I died. But yeah, I took as many as I could for sure, and yeah. How about you?
No, that's a really good question.
This is how the Common App looks, by the way. That's why I listed as an
Yeah,
example.
so,
you have to list all this out there.
Yeah, so like Bush was saying, it's relative to your school, so they're not going to compare a student from like a really small school to like a student at a really big school. They'll look within the school. So for me, I took something like 12 AP classes, but my school offered like 5, so I had to do I effectively ended up taking classes at the university instead of at high school. And then I had like a 3.97 maybe, and then for you said SAT and ACT. I didn't take the SAT. I only took the ACT, and I got either a 32 or a 31. Any other questions?
So any final questions before? Yes.
Do you want to make any comments?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Waalaikum
My name is Kareem Sayed, and I came all the way from the West Coast. No, not from the West Coast US, but West Coast of Houston. I know you. And I'm not a Harvard graduate either. But I'd like to mention a couple of things. Number one, we talked about Dr. Lalani. And I think Sister asked a question. So if you need a contact with Dr. Lalani, I will give my email, let me know. And because he and I worked around, it just happened, Maria was there during COVID. We were volunteers, so I had a chance to spend about 2 hours with him, just directing traffic. So that's how I got to know him. So in case you're looking for internship and so forth like that, and like you said, he may be winning the election, so that's one thing I'd like to offer. The second thing is, there are 2 young students who are 16 years old, brothers and sisters, twin, and they graduated from Miami Central High School at the age of 16. And they got, I think the sister got $1 million in scholarship, the brother got $364,000 in scholarship. So I was very intrigued, and by the way, YouTube video is available so you can check it out, right? Khalid and Khalida, brother and sister, K-A-L-I-D and K-A-L-I-D-A. So I called the high school counselor at Central American High School, and I said, what did you do with this kid? How they got $1 million in scholarship? And she said, Mr. Kareem, I encouraged him to apply for 2 scholarships per week. That was the secret. And it was very, very difficult to do that for students, but that's what actually they did. So that is very important. If you really want to go for a scholarship, then you have to do it. So now I have an offer for you guys, it's freebie. And why I'm telling you all this is because I talked to Sister Bushra before this meeting here. I'm in the process of developing a mobile app that has everything that you saw. So hopefully it will lead you eventually to that doing things and managing your time and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, long story short, so I'm also collecting the scholarships. A friend of mine, she sent me a collection of about 2,500 scholarship websites, right? And so if you are interested in that, and there are current regular websites, so I'm gathering them right now, and if you need it, then I'll give my email to Sister Bushra and Camilo, and you can get my email or Sister here, and then I can send it to you.
No, thank you very much. That's wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we'll take one last question if there are any. No questions? All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. We really appreciate you guys and the time. And again, we're really doing this
No,
to,
it's okay.
oh, sorry, yes, go ahead.
Do you emphasize scholarships not based on academics, based on other like extracurriculars or like how?
Yeah, there's sports scholarship, there's plenty, there's thousands of things based on ethnicity, based on sports, anything. There are so many. And again, don't focus too much on this, it's just more of, we wanted to offer that, yeah, but there are.
So if you want things that are like not academic, so I would highly recommend looking into like skill-based scholarships. Some of the highest paying ones are in music. Some of them are in like athletics. So like, yeah, like football scholarships are very, very prestigious and you can make lots of money. Then there's also other scholarships where you can get them from competition. So anything that you can do competitively, there will be some scholarship associated with it. So whether it's like archery or chess, or there's I think there's like one for acting too. But yeah, but effectively what I'm saying is like, if there's anything you compete in, you'll probably find a scholarship for it. And then if you're interested at the university you're going to or you're thinking of, look at the clubs in that area that have like people that do what you think. So maybe you like, I don't know, like building cars and you're applying to Harvard Engineering, you can talk to the like robotic car team and ask them, hey, what scholarships exist in this area? And then people will tell you what exists.
That's awesome. So we'll end here, but again, hopefully we didn't stress you guys out too much. We wanted to be as lighthearted as possible, but I know it could seem very intimidating, but we just wanted to be, again, very real to you guys and give you it as is, because this is information I wish I heard at a younger age. It would have made my life so much easier. So again, don't stress at all, and whatever happens, happens. And use Islam/Dua to your assets. And yeah, thank you so much.